The day my yacht went under looked almost beautiful sunset, turning the water gold waves calm, like nothing was wrong. If you ignored the fact that a $15 million boat was sinking right in front of me, you'd almost call it peaceful. And there she was, Karen Whitmore, HOA president of Bayrest Marina, standing at the end of the dock with her pink blazer pearls and that stupid clipboard smiling like she'd just saved the neighborhood from evil. "Your yacht violates community standards," she said. "It's too big. You'll thank us later." I didn't move, didn't shout. I just watched my boat, my Odyssey, disappear beneath the water, every sound of twisting metal echoing through my chest. They thought they'd humiliated me. But what Karen didn't know was simple. She'd just destroyed a yacht sitting on my dock, in my marina. I wasn't always the kind of man who cared about confrontation. I spent 20 years designing ships for the Navy, precision, calm logic. When I retired, I promised myself I'd live quietly. No deadlines, no boardrooms, no stress, just sea breeze and coffee at sunrise. Bayrest Marina looked like paradise when I first moved in. Families walking the pier, kids feeding pelicans, retirees fishing off the dock. I thought I'd found peace. Then I met the people who claimed to protect it. The Bayrest Homeowners Association was small but loud, retired executives, self-proclaimed guardians of aesthetics, and at the center of it all, Karen. Mid-50s skin, tanned to the color of entitlement, voice sharp enough to slice glass. She wore pastel suits every day and drove a white Lexus that matched her personality, expensive, spotless, and absolutely joyless. When I first docked the Odyssey, she appeared within minutes, heels clicking against the pier like a countdown to irritation. "You must be the new owner," she said, glancing at my yacht through her sunglasses. "Lovely boat. Shame it's enormous." I smiled. 75 feet of craftsmanship, licensed, registered, insured, and completely legal. She pursed her lips. "This community values balance and modesty." "Balance," I repeated, watching her check her reflection in my hull. "Sure, I'll keep her balanced." That was our first encounter. I didn't realize I'd just become her personal obsession. Within days, the letters started: Violation Notice 001. Your vessel obstructs the scenic view of Lot 17. Violation Notice 002. Noise complaint, excessive generator operation. Violation Notice 003. Visual disharmony. They actually wrote that. Visual disharmony. I'd seen war contracts written with less nonsense. Still, I tried to play nice. I went to an HOA meeting thinking I could reason with her. Big mistake. Karen sat at the front like a queen addressing her subjects, and the rest of the board nodded along to every word. When she brought up the yacht problem, she looked at me like she was addressing a criminal. "Mr. Hayes, your vessel casts shadows on other docks. It affects resale value. We request that you remove or replace it." I almost laughed. "Replace a $15 million yacht, Karen? I have every permit. Your rules don't limit size." Her smile tightened. "We'll see about that." From that day on, I was enemy number one. Inspections, fines, unannounced visits. One afternoon, I came back to find a bright orange sticker on my gangway. Notice of non-compliance. I peeled it off and stuck it to my fridge. My personal trophy of nonsense. But what really crossed the line was the night I found the Odyssey dark, no lights, no power, no security feed. Karen had cut the shore power connection. When I confronted her, she sat on her porch sipping iced tea like she was in some suburban soap opera. "We had to disconnect non-compliant vessels," she said. "Community policy." I wanted to yell, but I'd learned in life that anger is currency. Spend it too early, you end up broke. So I just smiled. "Understood. I'll make a note." And I did. Every letter, every photo, every ridiculous complaint, I wrote it all down in a notebook labeled HOA Evidence. Then came the new rule. No watercraft exceeding 55 feet permitted in Bayrest Marina. She passed it overnight with her puppet board and mailed me a copy signed effective immediately. I read it under the deck lights and almost laughed out loud. She had just changed the rules retroactively to target me. But I didn't react. Instead, I checked the fine print and found something she'd missed. The HOA didn't actually own the marina. The water, the docks, the slips they were leased from a private company called Bayrest Harbor Holdings LLC. A company that, funny enough, I happened to own through an old trust. I stood there on the dock that night smiling at the water. They wanted a war. They were standing on my battlefield. Weeks passed in silence, too much silence. Karen wasn't done. She was planning. Then one morning I walked outside and saw a red sign hammered next to my dock: emergency community regulation. All non-compliant vessels must vacate within 72 hours. Her signature at the bottom like a scar. I sipped my coffee. Well, I muttered, here we go again. The HOA turned into a parade: clipboards, measuring tapes, orange vests, all pretending to be Coast Guard. I watched from my deck chair as one guy dropped his ruler in the water. Karen hovered behind them, whispering orders into her phone. That night, 3 of my security cameras went dark. When I checked the feeds, I found cut cables and disconnected lines. I fixed them myself, then installed hidden cameras. I was done being polite. The next morning, my power was out again. My water line, too. So I went to her office, the HOA clubhouse that looked more like a courtroom than a community center. "You've cut power to private property," I said. "That's illegal." She didn't even flinch. "We're enforcing safety standards." "Safety," I said. "You think pulling live wires in the rain is safe?" She tapped her clipboard. "You're not welcome here, Michael. The board voted unanimously your yacht must go." I smiled. "Funny. I checked the county records. You don't own this dock." Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then she said coldly, "We'll see what the county says." And she did. Within days, county inspectors showed up. Fire marshals, environmental officers, even a TV lawyer she'd hired to represent the community. They found nothing. But that wasn't her goal. She didn't want justice. She wanted exhaustion. The rumors spread fast. Millionaire blocks Marina access. Selfish outsider refuses to comply. I became the villain of every HOA Facebook post. Someone threw a rock through my truck window with a note, "Move your ship or we will." I'll admit it, one night I sat on the pier staring at the dark water and wondered if she was right. Maybe I didn't belong here. Maybe fighting her wasn't worth it. For the first time I felt small, like the tide was against me. But then something clicked. I looked out at that dock, the same dock she kept calling community property, and whispered to myself, "You don't own the water, Karen." "I do." That's when the storm inside me turned. I wasn't running anymore. I started gathering proof. Financial ledgers, property deeds, tax filings. With my lawyer Elaine, we traced every payment the HOA had made. And then we found that the HOA used community funds to hire a tugboat company claiming it was storm debris removal. Only there was no storm that year. Karen had forged the paperwork. She'd paid them through her personal account. She didn't just break the rules, she broke the law. Elaine looked up from the file, eyes wide. "You could press charges right now." I shook my head. "Not yet. Let her think she's winning." Then came the storm. Real thunder. Real lightning. I was in my cabin when my phone buzzed motion alert. I opened the feed and froze. Flashlights. Men in reflective vests climbing onto my yacht. And in the beam of the dock light, Karen. Pink raincoat, umbrella, clipboard. Even in a storm she had to accessorize. She pointed at my yacht and shouted, "Get it off my dock!" The tugboat behind them started its engine. They were actually going to remove it by force. I ran out into the rain. "What do you think you're doing?" I yelled over the wind. Karen's hair stuck to her face, her eyes wild. "Removing a non-compliant vessel. HOA authority overrides your nonsense." "That's private property," I shouted. "Not anymore," she screamed back. The tugboat's cable tightened, groaning against the cleats. Metal screeched, sparks flew. I felt the vibration through the dock like a heartbeat gone wrong. "Stop," I shouted. One of her workers hesitated. "Ma'am, maybe we should—" "Do it!" she shrieked. "Push it off the dock." And they did. The Odyssey lurched sideways, the hull tearing open with a deafening crack. The deck lights flickered once, and then she was gone, swallowed whole by the black water. Karen stood there, drenched and trembling, yelling over the thunder. "This is what happens when you defy the HOA." I didn't answer. I just held my phone, still recording. "Hope your clipboard's waterproof," I said quietly. "You'll need it in court." The next morning she was on the news. Hair perfect, voice calm. "Last night's incident was a necessary safety operation," she said. "The yacht posed a hazard. They even showed her standing next to the wreckage like she was proud. But her official letter had one fatal flaw: it wasn't from the county. It was printed on HOA stationery. Sloppy, predictable, illegal." I called my lawyer, my insurance agent, and the FBI field office. Within days, investigators arrived. They photographed the cut cables, the severed power lines, the fake permits. They asked for authorization. Karen had none. And that's when I knew she'd finally sunk herself. A month later, the courtroom was packed. Karen strutted in wearing lavender and pearls like she was walking into a fundraiser, not a federal hearing. Elaine whispered, "She still thinks this is an HOA meeting." The judge wasn't amused. When Karen's lawyer claimed she acted for community safety, the judge raised an eyebrow. "You destroyed a $15 million yacht." "Yes, Your Honor." "It was a danger to residents. Do you have a statute allowing HOAs to order maritime removals?" The lawyer stammered. "Well, the bylaws." "Bylaws," the judge cut him off. "Don't override state law, counselor. Try again." Elaine stood. "Your Honor, exhibit." A video footage of Mrs. Whitmore directing the removal, saying, and I quote, "HOA authority overrides this nonsense." The video played. The entire courtroom went silent. A few people gasped. The judge leaned forward. "That's her voice." "Yes, Your Honor." Then Elaine brought up Exhibit B, financial records. The tugboat payment from Karen's personal account labeled storm debris removal. There was no storm. "Your Honor, we confirmed with the National Weather Service." The judge scribbled something down. "Proceed." Exhibit C, the Marina deed. My name, Bayrest Harbor Holdings, LLC. The HOA, Elaine said, had zero legal authority here. "None." The judge turned to Karen. "So you destroyed property you didn't own on land. You didn't control using stolen funds." Karen's voice cracked. I was protecting property values." "By sinking a yacht," the judge said flatly. The room erupted in whispers. Karen sat down, pale as the walls behind her. 2 hours later, the verdict came. The HOA was liable for property destruction, fraud, and misappropriation of funds. They owed full restitution, $22.4 million. Karen faced separate criminal charges for wire fraud and falsifying documents. The judge's final words echoed through the room. "Authority without ownership is just arrogance wearing a name tag." The gavel fell. I exhaled, the weight finally leaving my chest. As we walked out, reporters swarmed me. "Mr. Hayes, any comment?" I stopped for a second, looked straight into the cameras and said, "They said my yacht was too big." Turns out their ego was bigger. That's where the story ends for most people with Karen's downfall. But for me, it wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. Because the truth is, people like Karen think power means control. It doesn't. Power is knowing when not to use it, when to let the storm rage and wait it out. She tried to drown my dream, but she only proved one thing. You can sink a ship, sure, but you can't drown a man who owns the water.